All right. All right. Welcome to the meeting of the Mrcac River Citizen Advisory Committee, the last for 2023. Despite my best attempts at canceling it, you guys said, yes, we want to meet in December. All right. So Mike, thank you for coming. We're going to switch up the agenda a little bit because Mike is with us for the first hour. So I propose, my co-chair, Elfie, if you don't mind, that we put the update on the NIFUD grant as the first item.
Okay.
So we can talk about what you guys just did at the Knox Powder and Mill dams, and then go back to our regular programming. So Mike, we can have you for the first agenda, and then we need to go. First item on our agenda. So Elfie, thank you so much for filling up for me while I was
Welcome.
in Paris and running the show and setting up the agenda. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, so first, meeting, item, the approval of the November 14, 2023 minutes.
One quick question.
Sure.
Is the Zoom working?
Yes.
Okay, just, that's all. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine. Thanks, Chris.
I just received a message that said the meeting.
Do they want to participate on Zoom or are they just watching?
I don't know.
Well, could you ask them if they
Yeah,
want to
just-
participate? Because
yeah.
it's two different,
Oh, is it really?
yes.
Yeah, because if they want to watch, it's better if they watch on YouTube.
Okay, well, but for us, no, thanks.
Well, you figure that out. Let's
No,
move.
good. Yeah,
Let's-
drive on, let's drive
All
on.
right, thank you.
Sorry.
So, November 14, 2023 meeting minutes, have you read them? Any comments, changes?
I'd send one correction to Davina, and I assume it got in about spelling the lupin. It's lupine terrace,
Lupine terrace.
L-U-P-I-N-E.
No, okay.
Yeah.
I think you did change it, yeah, but that's the only thing I saw.
I also sent a couple, one of them, Courtney has an R in the middle of her name.
Do you now?
It's on the front page.
Unless you're in any other country, most other countries, no.
And the second one?
I think it was more a question, so I'll wait. It wasn't a question. There might have been another typo, but I can't find it.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve them?
Oh, sorry, I found it.
Go ahead.
Opera House, not Opria. It's creative, but
I like it. Maybe it should be the name.
that's it.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes with the edits and corrections shared by Ray and Deb?
I so moved.
A second. All in favor? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, the town manager update.
So I really only have one quick update, and that's about the project that the town is doing with the Montgomery family donation to do some work on the dam. So the contractor started the repointing work, and they were also planning on installing the new gate, but the water levels are too high because of all the precipitation that we've had. So there's just no way to draw it down to a point where we can install the gate during the winter time. So we're gonna have to wait until the dry season to do that. So that's really the only update that I have. Oh, and the interim progress report was submitted to National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. Tina did that for us, so that's the first project report.
Excellent.
You actually, you all have that. It's,
all-
I was underneath the agendas, so.
Okay.
Excellent.
One question.
Sure.
On the Montgomery thing, what about the work on the island? Is that gonna be during the summer or when? The vegetation.
So that really depend on the landscaper if the bridge is done in time, but I think that it's being fabricated now, so I think that should be done to schedule. That's not dependent on water levels or
Right.
weather or
Yeah,
anything like
okay.
that.
Cool. All right, so we're moving the the agenda, by tackling the Nitwit Grant interim report update. Because we have Mike. Before we take a deep dive into this, I'm curious to hear about the visit you all made a few minutes ago at the Knox Powder Mill. What was your what were your takeaways, your impression? What did you learn? Anything you want to share?
I thought it was great to see the pictures and the renderings when you're standing on site.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
And to know, all right, well, will this move? Will this move? Where are the places where there's sediment or things that need to be changed? What will be changed?
So give you a better idea of
Yes.
how yes. Right?
Yeah, did you say Ray or Rick? I'm sorry.
Right.
Okay.
I say Rick and Ray is the.
Rick, right.
Right. I can see with the French accent, so Rick.
So what I liked was, honestly, just having a visual about a lot of these places that we only had descriptions of before, like above the powder mill, and kind of seeing how that bends around there, and getting a sense from Mike about what areas would maybe require additional work after removal of the main dam structures. Because as it turns out, I didn't really notice this before, but below both that dam and the Knowlton Street Dam are these, because the way that the dams were erected, kind of going in two directions, you have these little islands in the middle right below, and then the question becomes, all right, do you retain that or encourage, the original, like the natural state before then? That was interesting.
And maybe for people who are watching, the River Committee had requested a visit of those three dams, and Mike joined the visit to give them some pointers on what is possible, what it would look like when they're removed, if they're removed, and things like that. So this was not a public meeting, it was a meeting of a working meeting of the committee to visit those three dams. Thank you, Mike, for making time for us, just so that people understand why it took place. Ray, you have something you want to share?
No, I think what Rick just said, we get a good picture of what it could look like, or, and which is something we really need. Okay?
Yeah.
And, as Rick discovered, we have some very eager beaver dam builders
Yes.
on the river.
They're big, huh?
Above powder mill.
Above
Yeah.
the mill, and there are some, we didn't see the ones there above the Knowlton Street Dam, so. I think, you have to realize they're gonna build dams once the other dams are gone.
One night after the select board meeting, I was driving down Bayview to go home, and he was right in the middle of Bayview Street, and he looked at me like, lady, this is my street. And these are really big animals. I was like, "What?" Anyone else want to weigh in on the visit of the dams, impressions, ideas? I mean, what I hear is the visualization of before and after picture is really impactful to understand how we modify those dams and what the river looks like afterwards.
Yeah.
Courtney, yeah.
Yeah, we also talked a little bit about the restoration project, like what would it look like, how would we do it? How would we make cozy little places for fish to go and breed and do things like that, so I think that's a key component that we haven't really discussed too much.
Yeah,
So I was gonna say,
Yeah.
to add to that, even keeping part of the option, perhaps keeping part of Powder Mill, just as an historic marker, just off to the side to say, this was here. And just because it's really pretty.
Yeah, there's some really beautiful cut granite on the
Yes.
sides.
Yes.
Middle section's some beautiful broken concrete, but maybe that's less of a marker, but.
A little less attractive.
Yeah.
Just a question for Mike.
Yeah.
That I didn't ask when we were out there. The restoration, the drawings that you showed us, who is actually gonna do the landscape planning? Is it your firm or is there a landscape planning firm that you work with? Is that the question you asked earlier?
No, I know.
Okay,
Yeah, so kind of a combined approach. So more planned out, things like entries or, sort of public use components. We would likely use that term view shed. That's gonna be helping us out with some of the thinking about how the sites interact with the river walk and some of those things. And then.
Mike, can you speak a little bit louder so
Sure.
that, sorry,
Yeah, you bet.
we're capturing all the essence of my.
Yeah, so the landscape, site restoration components, you could think of them as being comprised of, circulation of people, interaction, access to the river and things like that. There could be interpretive elements and things like that. And then there's sort of site restoration, the ecological components of it. And so for like thinking through the, sort of the people circulation, the people interfacing with the landscape aspects, we would bring in view shed, that landscape architecture firm that I mentioned, that's going to be helping us out, think about those sites, and then sort of the ecological, like the vegetation selection and things like that, we would predominantly sort of lead that selection of the vegetation and specification and planting designs and things like that. But
Making use
something
especially
maybe-
of native plants, I assume.
Yeah. As I mentioned, when we were out on the river, with dam removal projects where there are some invasive species in the system already, it's always, strongly recommended to have a pretty proactive planting program to get out, out in front of those species, to prevent their colonization of the sites.
It would be interesting also to understand the relationship between plants and animals, because I know, for instance, some of plants provide some shading for the brook trout so they can spawn, things like that. So there's a lot of information that we need to understand to make it a really hospitable habitat for wildlife to flourish, whether on land or
Yeah,
in the water.
absolutely.
It's super interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot, there's, different components of the riparian vegetation palette that would be more focused towards growing a little bit faster and developing shade a little bit more quickly. Other understory species that maybe become food sources for, terrestrial or amphibious, animals and, other longer lived species, that maybe don't grow as fast, but are more long-term, some of the faster growing species will kind of reach their climax stage and start to become habitat in the river itself, falling in, and then the longer lived species that, kind of anchor the riparian corridor over the long term. So some angles to that.
Cool. I was also thinking, as you were talking about markers, so traditionally we have all those, those information little bars there, but could we have a QR code that maybe links also to the river website so people can have more information, because you can just scan them. Everybody has a smartphone these days and there's only limited. You don't have a smartphone, right?
No, I refuse to use a cell phone. Period.
Good for you.
Wow.
I
I stand corrected.
District use.
Most people have a smartphone these days, but a way for them to get more information. Also thinking about this. Anyone else said, were you able to join or no?
No, tragically.
Yeah.
Sophie, I
Yes,
did
please.
mention the forest too. I think it'd be very helpful for everybody to have a copy of those diagrams and,
Yeah.
drawings that Mike has. So it doesn't have to be that size,
Mhm.
but I think it'd be very helpful just to have that.
Oh, that size is good. We like it.
Yeah.
We like the 11 by 17. Yeah, I mean, I think we all found the Knowlton Street impoundment restoration drawing, even though we've seen it before, but standing there looking at that and looking out over that and Mike gave us some just kind of rough estimations of what the channel would look like as we looked upstream there. And I thought I think we were all pretty.
Yeah, I felt like it
battling,
was good for idea generating and
but-
certainly, much more helpful to stand there and look at it, but I also just appreciate that.
Right.
And, I've read the report and can look at it in that way, but to be able to stand there
Right.
and ask any question and have you have a really comprehensive response to it. I mean, I don't think you said I don't know to anything that was said. That was really impressive and increased my level of trust in the work that you guys do, so.
So Rick, and then Ray.
So a question popped up after Mike explained when we were on the Knowlton Street, despite it being hard to hear because it was so, my ears are blown anyway, but looking up, we were talking a lot about sediment that's below there, and some component of the work would be sediment removal in some form. And speaking with Elfie, it occurred to me that I didn't really understand afterwards, I didn't really understand how far up you projected that sediment of concern goes above Knowlton Street, past specifically like by the school area. Does it go that far?
Yeah, so I think what we were referring to is with the sediment behind the dam, we quantify the total amount, and then of that total amount, we then look at how much of that is likely to erode if the dam was taken out. And so what you would do with the sediment management is to proactively remove the sediment that's likely to erode. And so that length, basically in the concept design that we put together so far, extends from the dam up and around the corner, about up to the power plant corridor. So where there's, the crossing basically between the wastewater treatment plant over to the pump station. So kind of up and around the corner there, almost to the middle school.
So not all the way to the middle school, but just below that.
Yeah, that's where we have the design time. As you get up into there, that's an area where you're, I guess Ray was referring, there's quite a bit of beaver activity in that area as well. So that area could likely be more of a passive approach that will kind of, the differences in water levels before and after the project are much less up in that area. So that area probably let things kind of evolve passively.
Okay.
Right.
I'm really familiar with that property, that area. Did you have, just based on what you and I were talking about?
Well, we were just talking about access, and I was saying how much it drops off. It's hard to access the river from the middle school because of the drop, embankment thing. And having too many kids going up and down there, all the erosion it would cause and all that kind of thing. And I think you were trying to say that perhaps if we were to do the restoration project, that the river would shrink and we'd have more land. Is that what you were kind of trying to tell me?
I thought, and I don't wanna, that's,
Right.
I'm trying to.
Understand, that might not. And I am very aware of all the beaver activity back there. It's pretty neat little wetland. I've been worried about it, just in terms of this project, because it's a pretty robust little wetland back there that nobody knows about.
And I'm sorry, Sophie, can I just continue with this for one small
Please.
question? Okay, so one of the things that I think I understood from what you explained, Mike, is that the width of the river would probably shrink from upwards of, I think you just estimated about 150 feet wide, just above Knowlton Street, that it would be about a third of that once you get down to that, the channel would probably be about 50 feet-ish. With that width, would you project that would be the same width as you get upwards to the school area as well? Okay. So there would be some reclaimed land, if that's the right, that's probably not the right term, but as we're shrinking, the size of the bank would presumably grow.
Yeah, that's-
Including the area.
As you get around that corner, the river left or the middle school side is quite steep, as you know, and then the river right side of the channel or the opposite side of the channel is an area that was historically impoundment when the water levels were higher, when the mills were being operated and whatnot. So that sort of overbank area is kind of already like, it would have been what, within the pond historically, but as the water levels dropped, with the current level of the dam, that area is actually already kind of in a way restored,
Kind of water loving plants are over there.
Yeah.
Like winterberry and stuff.
Yeah, it's quite a complex.
Yeah,
So.
and that's right where the
you know,
power line, are you talking about right where the power line comes?
Yeah, and just a little bit further on
Yeah.
the river there on that side, so in a way that's, probably somewhat of an analog, of what some of the, restored, floodplain areas may look like with the long term.
Can we bury the power line with that project?
We don't do that around here.
No, I know, but I mean, I'm done with the argument that there's ledge, yeah, but there's sewage, right? So we can bury everything we want. There's no issue, because that would be even better, right? If we could have, because those power lines,
Every great river has a power line hole, but I hear what you're saying.
yeah. Rick, you're done?
I think so.
Ray, you want to? No, you can, I mean, we,
No, I didn't have it, so
oh, I thought your hand was
I
up.
probably was, but no.
So if I may, I just wanted to point out to the committee that underneath your agenda is the Smith with update form. So if you haven't seen this yet, that's why you have a printed copy. It's fresh off the press. As Audra said, it was just distributed. On the back side of that are some updates from Mike and kind of what he's been doing. So I just wanted, I know this is kind of impromptu, but if any of the committee has any questions in general for what Mike has been doing or is doing, we are blessed with this presence and we can ask that. And I guess I'll just tee it up a little bit, Mike, and can you tell everybody what your team was doing on the canoe?
That's what I was
today?
gonna ask.
Yeah, I think that would be fascinating to hear.
Yeah, so team of a couple of, field staff were there in a canoe and they had, a depth sounder, attached to the side of the canoe, that was connected to the GPS. So the above the canoe thing, the ET looking thing was the GPS. That was, linked into the, depth sounder. And so they were, navigating through the impoundment, collecting, elevations of the bed of the impoundment, bathymetry. So they were making a pass doing that today, and then they'll be following through to go back through and be taking more additional measurements of the thickness of the sediment to supplement what we collected in 2020. So
Does the thickness of the sediment tell us what's in the sediment, or could be an indication of what's in the sediment, or do we already know how the sediment is composed? And whether there's an issue there that we need to, like a PFAS or mercury or.
yeah, so we those physical measurements, the thickness of the measurements, those measurements we use to for a couple of things. One is to come up with an estimate of how much sediment, or refine the estimate of how much sediment. But then those measurements are also very valuable for sensing where, the lowest point in the impoundment is, which gives us some clues about where the river channel was historically. And so those physical measurements are for that. As far as the composition of the sediment, we did collect 8 samples through the Knowlton Street impoundment in 2020. And those samples are valid for 5 years. And I was mentioning on site, we just had a check-in meeting with the folks that administer the beneficial reuse program for Maine DEP. And so for the most part, the sediment looks pretty good for potentially even reuse through that program if there were a beneficial reuse site that was in play, locally. Otherwise, the disposal of it would, likely go as daily cover at a landfill or something. I mentioned, and as is characterized in the feasibility study report, it's a post-industrial river. There's most definitely a variety of compounds in there, things like that, but nothing that is a real showstopper. We initially were planning to take additional samples through the current data collection period, that after talking to the folks at DEP the other day, we may kind of pull back on that for the time being. maybe just take one or two additions.
Susan, and
And
then
I assume your instruments do not distinguish between, ledge and sediment?
Well, yes.
So you're taking depth.
Yeah,
Can
it's
you
hard,
tell?
well, it's pretty hard to do, when we're doing the sediment probing. It's pretty easy, you clearly get a good sense of what is sort of finer sediment, organics and silts and things like that. And fine sands, and then when you start to run into things that you can't probe down through,
Ledge.
you can tell the texture of those materials, like from like really coarse sand or gravel, or even coarser things, but then you can't probe down through like cobbles and boulders and things like that. You can kind of tell like cobbles and things like that, but boulders and ledge are pretty hard to distinguish.
I was just thinking, looking at the depth of the river, trying to determine, obviously, you can't tell between sediment and ledge. Your instruments.
You can tell the difference between, you can tell the contact point between sediment and ledge. You can probe down through the sediment, but you can't go through the ledge or boulders.
So will there be a 3D map that we can see at some point with the bathymetry?
Yeah, yep, and there's, I believe there is some sediment thickness, mapping already, from the last study, and yeah, we'll refresh all that with the additional data.
do you use sat data at all?
Do we want-
Do you use satellite data at all?
Well, the GPS,
Well, is that,
the
but,
positioning is via,
so, okay, so in projects I run in watershed management in Ethiopia, we used satellite data for regreening measurements and for depth and for all kinds of stuff. And most of the satellite data that we can use is free. We don't need to buy it. So I was wondering if that would be useful, or if you've ever used it, to design, to see the riverbed and what we see from above.
yeah, usually, when you, that type of data, it's basically remote sensing data.
Yeah.
That's, based on sensing different color spectra.
Yeah.
That get interpreted into different types of information. Usually when we're at the scale of a project, like say the Knoxville site or something like that, that data tends to be too coarse and rarely actually be used, but, we certainly make use of, all the aerial photographies and things.
Cool. Yeah, yes, and then, oh, sorry, Rhea.
That's what,
Mike, water quality, have you done some sampling as a baseline of what it's like now? And then compared to the quality of the water once the dams are gone, if the dams go? Do you have that baseline already?
We did it.
Just for the
Yeah.
water?
I guess I'll, pass it on to Forest Group and along the watershed association, I believe, started with some basic physical parameters and,
Yeah, so when you guys saw our very first speaker series was 2022 data, which is basically looking at dissolved oxygen, temperature, kind of the basic parameters to see what the health of the river is. I checked in with Tim Trumbauer, who basically his group has taken over the sampling for 2023. We helped him set up and put the data loggers in, and I think they did some work with you as well with some depth loggers in the river. And he's working on it. We offered help as needed, but he's busy right now, so he's gonna get to it as soon as he can.
But you removed them for the season.
He removed them for this season, I
So
think,
that-
about a month ago.
Yeah,
But is it possible that you will do a follow-up, once whatever is done, is done? To
Well,
see the difference that.
yeah, that's a great question, Deb. The idea is to do it annually, so that you have good, robust data year after year after year, because 2023, as you all know, was an anomaly with how wet it was. So there'll be some droughty summers most likely as well, so it's good to compare and contrast over a decade if you can.
Right.
right.
and like, for those who weren't on their tour today and everything, can you just, repeat what you said about the sequencing of which dams would be removed or worked on first? or, I think,
Sure.
I don't put words in your mouth, so. go ahead.
Yeah, sure, yeah, we talked about the sequencing, between the three dams that we took a look at today and, you know, recognizing that all of those projects would be happening within a programmatic framework where you're generally committing to, you know, addressing all of the sites, you know, with the end goal of having C-Run, you know, connectivity up to the, Mrcac Lake and whatnot. There's probably not, you know, and those projects are all generally being implemented within a 5-year period or something like that. There's probably not a really essential sequencing, but some things that we talked about on the river there were, so for example, between Knowlton Street and Knox Mill, you know, just recognizing all of the sediment management that's occurring at Knowlton Street. You know, one angle could be to leave Knox Mill in place until you've got the Knowlton Street site done, and you would just have the Knox Mill impoundment there as a third belt and suspender, if you will, as yet one more downstream control. And then as far as the powder mill goes, it's kind of off on its own. And, you know, I think you'll find also in implementing projects in a sort of multi-site program like this, there's also just opportunistic things that come up that you may go ahead and implement one of the sites because some set of chips fell into place to do that and when iron's hot. You know, if it were a different circumstance and you didn't have this overall programmatic approach, you know, people would probably be looking for you to move sequentially up, you know, but within a more comprehensive and holistic approach like you're pursuing, then there's probably less of that.
Any further questions? Chris, you have questions for Mike?
No.
Any? Yeah, we're good? So I would like to.
I don't, probably nobody else is interested, and maybe I can connect with Mike about this. I didn't understand exactly the value of leaving the Knox Mill dam in place.
Oh, sure.
I just, it's not questioning it, it's just not understanding.
Oh, yeah, just that temporarily,
Right.
it would just be yet another, place to trap some sediment, if there was some sediment that was stirred up and was, you know, inadvertently.
That you didn't
migrated
grab.
downstream. Yeah, and so it would just be, you know, like a backstop.
Yeah.
A free safety.
But eventually it would go,
It would, yeah, eventually.
but that would add to the sediment that has to be removed from that.
Yeah, which is very minimal.
Yeah.
It's very.
Okay.
And Mike, just to follow up on that one
Sure.
point, and I want to make sure I understood you correctly, that presently, there's really not much sediment, if any, between the Knowlton Street Dam and the Knox Mill Dam.
That's right.
So that sequencing kind of thinking, like we don't necessarily want to invite new sediment down in that next section, but
Yeah,
so it ends up.
yeah.
It's different if it's just adding to, but if it's putting sediment in a place that it doesn't currently exist,
Yeah.
doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, there's a range of ways, you know, you can talk about it in multiple directions, you know. I think overall though, yeah, there's probably a range of solutions in the sequencing that would work just fine.
I think that whole slope of bamboo that's on the river left is actually all sediment. It's just, it's 20 feet high.
Where do you mean? I'm sorry, sir.
So downstream of Knowlton, above the Knox Mill on river left, along the guardrail to the middle condos.
Yeah.
Where the
That whole
house is,
slope
the
of
duck house.
bamboo, you have the duck house that's
Yeah.
decrepit, the bamboo's growing through all the windows.
Ah.
Like that's sediment that's just built up in that back eddy over the
Ah, I didn't know
time
that.
that there have been dams keeping water circulating.
Oh, so next to the parking lot.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, the parking lot could be on it.
Yeah.
But
I have a question. You mentioned with, when we were looking at the dam that's connected to the building, that there would have to be some masonry work that goes on underneath the building because it's really sort of structurally part of the building at this point. Where does that land in terms of responsibility? I mean, if we're taking out a dam, but this building is part of it, does that fall on the building owner to do the masonry underneath, or does that become part of the project that they're funding for?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, it would be part of the dam. That would be part of the process of extracting the dam from the building. Yeah, so the design plans for the removal of that dam would include, that restoration for the building foundation.
And likely be paid for under the construction funds for the dam.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that being a point of contention, if we're
Yeah.
suddenly, now you have a whole new foundation to build.
Yeah.
All right. Any more questions for Mike? Dennis?
How do people typically remove the sediment? Where is there the access in this particular location to do that removal?
Yeah, so, it varies by site, the access to, the Dalton Street site, there's probably 3 or 4 different locations where you develop access. It's a little bit longer, places like through the utility corridor or maybe off the wastewater treatment plant, maybe, and then you would need something locally, by the dam as well.
So you're saying there are town-owned areas, and it wouldn't have to be going across somebody's property to do that?
Well, I mean, that's a good point that you raise, and I'm thinking just of, logical locations where it physically would make sense to develop access ramps that I think, for the most part, that, certainly the wastewater treatment plant and local, those are both town properties. Can't remember exactly the utility corridor, but there's certainly a right of way through there, that should probably be, exploited to get the access down through there. But I think overall, in these projects, it is fairly common to also develop access agreements if you need to gain access to a site over private property. And, that happens, maybe not every single project, but probably at least half of them, that there's some work to get some, access in place. And certainly there'd be a variety of, depending on what that ownership of the dams are at the time the projects were implemented, certainly happens. And whoever is, the quote unquote owner of the project that is occurring, whether it is, considered to be privately owned or owned by the town. So there's an array of access agreements that we can get in place.
Thank you.
Can we put those drawings on the website or the renderings? Is it like on the flood map maybe, or some on the river map or the?
Well, they obviously all exist already, but you mean have Mike pull them out or his
Right.
staff pull them out so we can feature just the renderings?
Yeah, put them on the.
PDFs or something, sure.
Yeah, and again, there's just like a handful, just like a site sewer packet I can put together as a standard.
Okay.
Or one for each site.
Cool.
Right.
Sure.
Any more questions for Mike? All right. Do we need to do?
So yeah, agenda triage, I'm gonna look to Alfie a bit, because you set this up with Bina, as you guys know, Bina has pneumonia, and a sick kid on top of that, so she is out. So under the second agenda item, we had a couple other bullets in there. Discuss additional unknowns and information.
You mean the third bullet? The third bullet.
Third
Okay.
bullet, yeah.
Okay,
I
I feel like we need to talk about that. Were you gonna skip that?
No, we're
No,
not.
that's what I'm asking you.
No, we're just,
I thought we were
we're just trying
triaging.
to maximize Mike's time here with us.
I see, okay.
What can we?
So are you trying to take something out though for triage, or are you trying to?
No, I was just saying, do we want to address those now and then we'll
Okay.
go to Courtney with the watershed model
Okay.
update after
Yeah.
that?
Okay,
Does that work?
sure.
And do you know more about these items than I do?
Okay, well, so looking at the work plan, which is this piece of paper, I believe, right?
Right.
We just were talking about what are the key things that we need to, delve into, before next, let's just say September. We've already talked about the last meeting, we talked about, tax, like what kinds of implications it has for, people's backyard taxes going up. And so that really needs to be looked into, in my opinion. And then the other thing was, we haven't really looked at or come to an understanding of what the Olmsted, I love what the phrase here, Olmsted legacy, which is, I think, a big concern of the Save the Dam Falls people. And we haven't looked at that, and I feel like it's a stone unturned. So I just want to put that forward as something we need to really dig into, maybe in the new year. So those two things, aesthetics, I think that referred to, again, how people's backyards are gonna change, with the shrinking, 1/3, 2/3 shrinkage of the river. So that's what we were talking about. And I guess we probably need to look at the, draft, time plan here and see maybe where we fit those things in. I don't know if we can do that today, or if we need to leave that to a subcommittee or to Vina. Okay.
Yeah, I guess I was gonna suggest that why don't we work on that and come back to the committee in January with some ideas?
Because the town's done a lot of work already with like the Olmsted Foundation or Olmsted Society, I think. So it's really just digging that up and giving it to all of you.
Great.
And I can just add a couple things Bina and I have been talking about that are, already on the timeline, at least I think they are. I think particularly the fish panel in February, that is an opportunity to talk about both aesthetics and impacts to taxes, and also some of the legal issues that people have brought up and sort of like looking at case studies, and what happened in other places. So I think that's just one thing to flag for those particular issues that you were talking about.
Will you say that again? When is it?
It's in February, so if you,
Isn't that the round table?
The pan,
Yeah,
not,
sorry,
Yeah.
yes, that's right. I forgot that there was another, the other dam communities roundtable, which is in February, which is the first row monthly speaker series #1, and that says roundtable.
I
Sorry.
totally understand.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about the roundtable later on the agenda.
Okay.
That's the second to the last piece on it.
Wasn't there also a question about flood insurance, impact on flood insurance?
Yeah, that kind of thing. I think that goes in there. So we have taxes, but we should say insurance as
Insurance
well.
as well?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep, Rick, go ahead.
I'll be the dummy here. What's an Olmsted legacy? Cause I know Olmsted, that word is a different thing. It sets off a different set of hives in my world, but,
Well,
I'm guessing
Olmsted,
this isn't the
Frederick
ADA.
Olmsted was.
Oh, that Olmsted, all
Yeah,
right.
right. Olmsted.
See, okay.
What, the Olmsted.
Susan,
Susan.
go ahead.
Americans Disabilities Act is like a whole thing. It's,
Okay.
never mind.
But also,
Brains in it.
I think what that is, what is the impact on Harbor Park?
Got it.
That's a huge one. And another one that we haven't talked about, which I know Save the Dam Falls is concerned about, is that reflecting pond that sits at the top of Montgomery Dam. The aesthetics of that. What will the underpinnings of those buildings look like? I think that's really important. And if you change Harbor Park, does it then need to be ADA accessible? What are the impacts of that? So there are a lot of things that go along with that. And the library really is the one that has to say we agree with the changes that are being made to the river and the park. So, I mean,
Because the library has.
they're the trustees and they are the trustees of the park. And so they are the ones that supposedly
Well,
give
they
it
have to
okay.
be included in the process somehow. I think we need to figure that out too,
Right.
how.
Well, if you look back at what the, not the charter from to the library trustees, I mean, they supposedly have control over, or at least a say in what happens to Harbor Park.
Right.
But on the other hand, if you look at what Harbor Park looked like before any of the changes were made and before that spillway was put in, you know, I think things can be worked on. But I think, you know, looking at the pond and ADA accessibility and changes to the park are things that really need to be talked about.
Yep. And I love that you raise ADA accessibility. We're gonna have Ray and then Courtney.
Yeah. And I think on that work plan and everything, we have to really look at how are fish gonna get from the harbor up the river? And that means Montgomery Dam, that whole process of getting them up there. Because everything else is contingent on what's gonna happen there. You're not gonna have fish going to the river unless you have a solution down there. And I think that's one thing that, you know, as a committee, I think we really have to look at because it's gonna fall through a vote.
Right. And if the town votes down Montgomery Dam,
It could,
what happens if we have started on the other three dams?
Yeah.
I guess I asked Mike that.
I think you,
Well, we talked about that a bit today.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still a lot of benefit, you said,
Right.
for restoring the Knowlton area powder mills
what is their funding?
to the river. Right, funding would be, tricky, right? It would, it's.
But it also has flood benefit, doesn't it? I mean, even if the Montgomery Dam stays there, if the other dams are removed, the flood vulnerability is better. Is it not?
They would certainly add
Mhm.
resiliency. you know,
Yeah.
the River through the town, sure. But, yeah. In the current, and then there's funding for those things, in freshwater systems for sure. But the more you can add dimensions to your projects, and in particular in this area of the world, the more you can connect, the sea run component will, magnify the competitiveness of the projects. Even though there's so much, gajillions of dollars of funding right now, it is nevertheless still competitive to access the dollars.
Courtney, you wanted to.
Oh, yeah, oh, it was about the Olmsted legacy. I learned very little about Frederick Olmsted, but what I did learn I thought was really interesting and want to just mention it, which is, turns out he was quite the conservationist. He really cared about like the human connection with the land, and so I think, in looking more into that, it might be really interesting to consider what he would think, these days about this project, and I think he'd be on board, but it's just something to consider.
That's one thing, you're reaching out to the foundation or the society, I forget what it's called exactly, but, there are a lot of communities across the United States with parks that were designed by the Olmsteds. And what the foundation is doing is, because a lot of them are experiencing the same issues that we are, impacts of climate change are forcing communities to fundamentally change these parks. And so that organization provides support to a lot of communities to go through that process.
We could definitely work with them.
And yeah, we reached out about this project and they said this is exactly the kind of thing that fits in with the mission and.
I think there are a couple of projects in Boston that they've done. That along the river. Right, yeah.
And they have big dollars available?
No.
No.
Just support.
Just like,
Just
yes,
moral
support.
support.
More like you're trying to.
Always looking for an angle.
So Julia, did you capture all those things that we wanna?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
I'll take a
awesome.
list of them.
She got,
Excellent,
Thanks, Ray.
excellent,
He's my keeper.
excellent. Do we have any more questions from Mike?
No, I guess just to kind of to respond to Ray, Ray for a minute, of talking about Montgomery Dam. you know, that's gonna obviously be an important topic for this committee. And I know Bina has been talking with Mike as to what the format in February or March of this Montgomery Dam meeting, charrette, you know, whatever form it takes, presentation, that'll, you know, we'll be looking for a lot of committee input, obviously, for that. That's gonna come up quickly.
Yeah.
The holidays
Yeah.
pass and suddenly it'll be time, so.
Yeah, 'cause, yeah, and just, I mean, we've got the harbor, you've got one block there where fish have to get above that.
Right.
And then the other one is at the other end, as far as how are you gonna get over Seabright and how are you gonna get over into Lake?
Right.
Because, I mean, I think that's the purpose of what this committee was established for, is that the idea was to get Seth Taylor's fish out of the harbor.
Not just staff.
What about my fish?
What about my fish, exactly.
All of those sites, you know, have study lines under the Mrcac grant. You know, so in the first quarter, you know, it's the upper two sites. You know, there's sort of separate process from, you know, the sites that we talked about today, on those two sites. You know, the feasibility study, we identified a couple of pretty good alternatives, but we're, you know, gonna fall back and look at them, you know, with finer tooth comb, you know, starting in the first quarter 24. And talking that around with whomever the stakeholders are, you know, relative to those specific sites. You know, and certainly, you know, relative to Montgomery Dam, you know, that's also, you know, covered under the grants as well. So,
Yeah.
you know, each of these sites will have their own sort of local communities, if you will, or targeted communities, if you will, you know, to kind of talk through, but, you know, just to underscore that, you know, the things that are being considered are not just those middle three sites, but it's, you know, it's the whole watershed. Or at least watershed.
To press Ray's point, at least what I heard him asking is, do you, I know it's in the studies, but are you, I was gonna say reasonably confident, but are you confident that you could find a way around those top three dams? Is there any doubt that,
Past Seabright
that you, and the east and west ends, is there any doubt that you could do that?
No, yeah, there's fish passage options for those sites for sure.
Excellent.
And I would say the same with Montgomery Dam as well.
I think once we start visualizing, I don't think I can do more than 3-syllable words. It would be great to understand, you know, how we can go there and what type of fish ladder you can put or passage or be very super interesting. Any more questions for Mike? Mike, it's so good to have you. Thank you for coming.
Sure.
We need to do that more often.
Yeah, I'll just leave these, there's three sites in each of these packages, so I'll just kind of collate it here a little bit. Whoever wants these can have them, and then I'll put up some PDFs together there as well that you can pass along electronically.
Perfect. Then we can add to the website.
Yep.
And just about to go like the forest too, like that. But I think we got some community events and everything, or whatever coming up next year. It'd be very good to have some type of a visual of what, for people to see.
Yep.
This is what it would look like in the Knowlton Street area. This will look like, those who don't even know what the Powder Mill Dam is, but the visuals will help people to say, hey, this is a good idea, or if you don't like it.
Well, there's some on the story now.
Yeah.
Yes, there are.
it's already,
Right.
with the little slider.
Right, but as Mike was saying, the landscape architect,
Right.
view shed that will most likely be engaged on this, that's their job, is to present the visuals,
Right.
you know, use the technical information and present the visuals in such a way that you can see, so that will be an important part.
Yeah.
At least it's a good first cut.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that, I know that Bina has been kind of thinking through, the approach to, you know, additional graphical content and whatnot. we talked, before about the ones that already exist here and, what people's impressions of those are. But, yeah, I think it would be helpful to continue to hear, as much information from the committee as possible as what types of graphical content, where, what, from what, viewpoints, in addition to, just, things that you would make on a plan or a map scale, looking an overhead view, but, then sort of the ground level view is gonna be quite helpful as well. Yeah, so I think Bina's kind of collecting, feedback on those things and work together with them.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Happy holidays. Ho, ho, ho.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for
Appreciate
the
it.
tour.
Thanks for the tip.
Yeah, anytime.
Ooh, be careful with that. All right, so we're back into
Watershed.
watershed update. Courtney, do you want the 3D model? The 3D model.
Sure.
You have 10 minutes to do that, is that?
I don't need 10 minutes.
Okay, oh, I love it.
Yeah,
Excellent.
but so,
Thank you.
FPE, that is Forrest, Bina, and Julia, stayed after the meeting last time to meet with Danny Solomon from the hatchery. He's the head of the hatchery at high school, and Jude Master. She teaches an outdoor lit class, which sounds really cool. But so she's involved as well because her class is gonna be helping with not building the model specifically, but helping with the other parts of it. Like they're gonna create an exhibit at the high school where they're gonna keep the model until probably about June. Danny said they might be done with the model by April. And we just discussed mainly just kind of some factors like dimensions and like we want to be able to move it around. Can't be too heavy, can't have to fit through a door, things like that. We prefer if we could also have it waterproof in at least in areas, so we could put water through it, see what it would look like to move through. It'd be super cool if we could get some dams in there and see what happens when we remove them. What else? We also talked about a kind of a permanent location, semi-permanent, because we need to put the model somewhere. But it needs to be in a place where the Stewardship Education Alliance can come in and take the model and use it, and that our group can come and take it to like what is it, Fish Fest or whatever, what are you calling it? River Fest, sorry, not Fish Fest. And yeah, so I don't know if you guys have ideas. We were thinking like the town office, but then they closed at 3, right? So we weren't sure if there are other places. I don't know, wanted to open that up to suggestion.
Does everyone understand what this is we're talking about? Okay.
We've talked about it before.
Right?
Yeah, maybe I'm sure.
Courtney, do you have a list of next steps coming out of that meeting?
Pretty much that we need to determine the site location. I think we're gonna have a lot more discussions on the specific dimensions and, things like that. But we have outlined the idea right now. And so, and I didn't really mention that, Danny's planning on starting this next semester, but he's getting ideas going and he and Jude are working together to kind of prepare for the semester, yeah.
And this will be an exact replica of the river.
Of the watershed,
Watershed.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so the materials are still unknown, that's another thing that we're working on. We talked about using mycelium, which is like fungi, which would be so cool.
Because of the girls who have the 3 girls who have that.
The grant.
The grant,
Yeah.
yeah.
So they're already working with mycelium in the hatchery and they're building these, kind of buoy things for floats out in the harbors. That's the project they're already working on. So they know the material. The question is, how do they use it to create the watershed and make it, correct and all that. So I think, some of this is going to be in the hands of the high school students to figure out, and that's kind of part of this whole process. We don't want to come in and say this is exactly what we want necessarily, because they need to feel like they have ownership as well, and we want to encourage that. But we do want something, the deliverable to be something we can use and showcase and, we can help kind of show to the public, like exactly what the watershed looks like, how it operates, how the river moves, things like that. And some other options we were talking about were creating like more than one model showing different phases of the watershed. We didn't really decide on anything in that way, but so we're still kind of in the idea phase. So if anybody wants to get involved and is really excited about this, you can let me know.
Can we put it at the library?
That was my
That's
question.
what I thought.
But I was gonna get Susan.
No, because well, the only reason I say that is they're really limited on their space.
Really?
I mean, we have a hard time setting up tables to sell books. So,
But I'm thinking
upstairs.
upstairs.
in the reading room,
No.
I would guess probably not.
I'll just.
It could be on loan perhaps in the picker room for a period of time.
The middle
Oh, that'd be
floor.
cool.
In the picker room,
Picker
right.
room, that would be cool.
Yeah, like over the
So if you
summer.
put it in the if you reserve the picker room, let's say in October, just before the vote, you put it in there
Yeah.
with pictures of what was going on, I would say that, because that's.
Oh, I like that idea.
Yeah, that
Either September or October. See,
Let's
October, I
reserve
think
it
is
now.
the rain month.
Yes.
But
Yes,
September,
that's right.
October, at least then people could go in and take a look at what the pictures look like, what the drawings look like, what the
Yeah.
watershed model looks like.
Yeah.
That might be.
That's
And
a
we
great
can
idea.
take it for events and things like that if we need to, right? Like we can remove it.
But I'm wondering also if it doesn't need like a summer location and a winter location.
Yeah.
What about the Y? I mean, it's in Rockport. But, I mean, that's pretty much.
Outside of the watershed?
Yeah.
How dare I even suggest such a thing?
Another thing that, SEA brought up, the Stewardship Education Alliance, we're working with Barbara Lawrence, with SEA, and she suggested putting it in where the little aquarium is,
Yeah.
Aquarium Park.
On
Have you-
the harbor?
Yeah, have you ever seen that yet? And it's like right next to the harbor master's house. So if we could find a way to keep it there, then like during the summer, people could definitely kind of examine it. But the question is, how do we keep it safe? How do we keep it, we screw it down? Like,
Yeah.
how does that work? And so we haven't figured that out yet, but,
We'll keep the brain
Yeah,
cells.
to be-
I was just gonna add quickly, number one, it was a great meeting, what amazing, people they are.
Aren't they so
The
nice?
piece that I was, so Danny,
yeah,
so this is what he did for a living or something, he builds models, so if this is gonna be a quality
Yes.
final product, it was very obvious, so that's
he
great to
knows what
hear.
he's doing, yeah.
Yeah,
We need to keep tabs on the date, because I wanna have a celebration. Let's have a party when we have a model, something festive, because it'll be
Riverfest.
April, Riverfest, yeah, but.
Well, I think that the high school students will likely put on a presentation.
Yeah.
Or something, so we could all attend that at some point, and that'll be great, because it will involve not just the high school students, but hopefully parents and
Yeah.
other community members and.
Well done, excellent.
So just a quick
Yeah.
question. Did Jude suggest that her outdoor lit class would be a part of this in
Yeah.
some way? Okay.
Yeah, so
interesting.
they're gonna be helping with the exhibit, doing some research, supporting the model building class, but not doing the model building itself, I don't believe. But
Okay,
because
so
that's
separate,
Danny's-
okay.
Yeah, it's separate, but they're working together, yeah.
I just had a chance to sit in on her class from my other role, like 2 days ago, so. And it's amazing, they're studying work of like Aldo Leopold and,
Yes.
I think that's the only one, that's what they're doing right now, I don't know if there are other names, but it's basically relationship between people and place and people and nature.
John Muir, did they do John Muir?
Not when I was there, because I was wondering about that, or Wendell Berry, or.
We should do
those-
Wicked Berry. for sure.
Right. But they were reading from a passage about, talking about December, they're doing it month by month, so. Right now, it's about how, home ranges of animals are shrinking, in terms of where they find food, if they're not hibernating, and what the limits of their, it's all observational, which I think will lend well to this. And I think that the good thing about Leopold's work is it suggests you can do this without like a big academic background. It's just about keeping your five senses open and it's very cool. And
Yeah.
Jude has such a deft touch about that kind of thing that,
Yeah. I think they're gonna bring a depth to this. And like, I don't wanna say like spiritual, but like, you know, just a kind of a perspective that we might not be talking about in these kind of meetings, you know? The human environment connection.
and these are all upperclassmen as well. So
Yeah.
it's, this class is it's an English elective, so it's mostly seniors and juniors. So you're getting a kind of that level of
Mhm.
thought and cooperation among the students. It's really.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. about this
Excellent.
session.
Awesome, thank you. Keep us posted, this is really exciting. Work plan, so I think we did the work plan to some extent. Elfie, anything else we wanted to add? I think we kind of tackled that.
No, I-
had Mike.
Think that we have done that.
Yeah, we'll circle back next meeting again.
Okay.
Discussion on how we can share information more effectively, social media, pre-press, opinion pieces.
So
Who's leading that discussion?
that came up, maybe I am, I don't know, but I'll just. do it.
Please do.
Take it away.
That, particularly the letter from the Save the Dam, people, the, sense was that we're not getting the word out, as effectively, which surprised me, but then I thought, okay, let's see, so Vita and I were talking about where are people able to access, all of our stuff, because we have this amazing website with lots of amazing stuff on it, and all our amazing meetings and everything, and the newsletters, amazing newsletters. So, I mean, it is going out to over 200 people via email, right? Is that the number? I think that's the right number.
Yeah.
But I said, or Vita said, and we should push it out, committee members should push it out on our social media. And I said, you know what, I for one, am gonna need a little tutorial on how to push it out on my social media. So.
But you have social media then. Step ahead of me.
So that was one piece that maybe some of us are able to take on, which should just be a couple of like presses of buttons. But I think that would be really important and effective to do. And then the other thing is, articles, we need to do more writing to the newspapers. And I think that's, again, I think something maybe that's committee members need to take on. And so one thought was, a letter to the editor every month, just saying, here we are again, and this is our website, and this is what certainly not going over the newsletter or anything, because that's already been done, but somehow lead more people to our newsletter and our website. And
So
that was one idea, was to write something for the
Can I-
papers.
Yeah, go ahead, no, go ahead, and then I'll piggyback on you as usual.
I was just thinking along those lines of these two, or at some point, was it the Camden Herald, I think, picked up one of our presentations and wrote an epic. It was Dan that wrote an incredible, like, summary of the presentation on fish, and, it would be great to get that going. You know, so every presentation, there's an article in a newspaper or two, just outlining, just summarizing the presentation, not giving any kind of opinion, just saying this is what was said. Is that along the lines of what you were saying?
Yes, and we don't wanna make any more work, so.
Yeah,
I will just say, we do a press release after
Yeah.
after them, so it's not the same as them covering us, like you said, but,
Right.
yeah. So is that what you mean, like?
I think that's,
We do a press release after the presentation?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
At least since I've been doing this.
No, we have been doing
Yeah.
all along.
yeah.
Can we
which is
do a
great.
press release that we did a dam tour today?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I think.
Sure.
Well, we have
It sounds
pictures, we did that on Facebook also.
We probably should have
when you-
invited Dan to go with us.
Yeah, I took some good photos.
Yeah, there's,
So,
yeah.
You have a nice one.
so that's the
Yeah.
big thing, it's just, it seems like it actually still isn't getting to enough people, and I don't know if that's,
A lot of people don't read the newspapers. too.
well, that's the
thing,
problem,
right?
that's what
Like,
we were talking about.
Yeah,
That is the problem.
how do we get to the people that don't
Whereas Instagram.
read
I think that's-
newspapers that aren't on social media?
Right,
I don't know.
well, that's true, I think that's maybe smaller segment, I do feel like social media would get to some more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting, how many of us use social media and could do this? I didn't say would, I said could.
Yeah,
1, 2, 3, 4.
and there is a
Just
trick.
save the damn fall, you have Facebook presence.
Like, I thought you were asking personal.
Well,
Yeah, I wasn't asking personal, I was trying to play off of what,
you can use that too.
Elfie said.
But that's only reaching our friends.
Right,
friends.
there is a trick to it though, and this is,
Yeah,
I mean, you just have to spend $20.
Oh, yeah.
And then you boost your post, you
yeah,
make it global, and then it will identify a target audience that doesn't include it isn't limited to your friends.
right.
And I used to use that a lot. I mean, you try to do stuff like this on a small budget, and that's the easiest way to do it is, you say, it'll ask how much you want to spend. So, I mean, I can donate $20 and do one of these and just send it out, and it'll say like, okay, you can reach this many people over 30 days or this larger population of people over 15 days and that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
Could you do 40 or 50?
I can do 40 or 50, fewer people, mind you.
I mean, I still think we need a Facebook page. I've been saying that for months and I don't think anyone agrees, but. It's
One
one of those
thing,
things.
one thing that we've been talking about internally and, after some of your comments about the Facebook page is, like doing posts maybe after things about some of the events we're having on the town Facebook page. Like something about the fish talk or,
Yeah.
dam tours or, whatever.
Right.
Cause we're using that to promote events, but maybe also sharing some information, to the extent that that's appropriate.
Although I wonder, I guess, wasn't there some concern that the town Facebook page is not reaching enough?
Well, that's
That's right, that's what you're saying. Yeah.
That's a good point.
and that's why I think coming from
And you couldn't
individuals.
boost that.
Well, that's it. I
If
mean,
we had our own page, you could boost and we could use the money from the grant. Do that.
right. And the cost for boosting from a personal site is less than doing it from what Zuckerberg characterizes as a corporate site.
Yeah.
A business site, surprisingly. So I'm happy to do that independently, and I think that's kind of, I mean, if you want, I can put together like what I'm gonna send out, and if any of you all have one as well, and you don't mind.
Audrey, we talked also about using the text app to inform people of the existence of their website, because we have a text app, you can subscribe to the town text messaging service, so you're aware of street closure, of snowstorms, parking, things like that, and they reach a lot of people. I mean,
It's probably better if it's associated with like an event or an announcement.
right,
As opposed to just trying to push information out,
Right.
because I don't want people to get desensitized and then stop checking our texts. when
I
it's-
agree.
Right.
Yeah. Sacrosanct.
Yeah.
the other thing is that one thing that goes to everybody in town is the tax bill.
Sorry.
Isn't that your favorite? No. No, but I mean, so to what extent can we put, because
As long as it's planned in advance of when the bills are going out.
Right.
The company that does it for us they'll print whatever information that we want stuffed in the bills and send it out to everyone.
And because we have a match funding thing, some of the tax, if there is taxpayers want to know what we do with their money. So I'm thinking if we can put a QR code on the tax bill that takes them to the website, something that's.
You can't put it on the bill.
No, but on the
We
letter.
could put we could put it,
Attachment.
yeah.
Might not be associated with the tax.
I was gonna say.
No, but I'm just trying to figure out, that's the one thing that everybody receives,
You're
and
right.
everybody
Oh, yeah.
opens it.
Yeah.
That's for sure. So if we can leverage that to give that information, we'll cool.
When does the next tax bill go out?
April.
It goes out in April?
Yeah.
I believe so.
Not November, okay.
No, it
Oh,
goes
wait.
up, no, it goes in March because it's due in April
Right,
15th, so
right.
it goes in March.
Right.
I think that also brings up just, mail in general and, with the newsletter, mailing out the newsletter to folks or something, you know, maybe it's not the newsletter, maybe it's just like, you know, I know we did the postcard back, in September, whenever that was. But maybe doing another mailing.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Like a summary of what we've done.
Yeah, a
doing.
little letter to the community.
Yeah.
And what is that? That's 2,500 or 3,000? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It's good coverage.
Do we have
So-
money for that?
Well, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
another
I
way,
mean, I guess the question is there value added? What percent
I
of
would,
people?
I mean, I would say, given the response to the postcard, it's probably not very valuable. I think most people throw it in the trash. quite
no,
honestly.
but we could also talk to Dan Dunkel because the Gazette is distributed free of charge now in every mailbox.
Yeah.
And so if we could work with them to have an insert, you know, like a, you know, because that goes
Well,
into,
they would do, so I reached out to them
Right.
about, when we were talking about town newsletter,
right,
they were more than happy to do it all for us, do the graphic design.
Yeah.
All we needed to do is add the content.
yeah,
So, yeah, Dan Dunkel and their publisher, who's in Ellsworth,
Yeah.
would organize that, and they would absolutely, I think it's like $1,000 per edition, something like that.
and they could circulate to the whole 7,000 people or 8,000 mailboxes that is Camden, Rockport, you know, the whole, because we're talking watershed, not just Camden, or just Camden. So something to think about because everybody,
And I mean, you already have the newsletter, so it wouldn't be duplicating the work.
and we could do that, you know, either for the Riverfest or for an occasion and say, hey, this is happening, and then having a two-sided one pager.
Mhm.
And so it could be
So-
useful. I'm also thinking of Hannaford. On
So-
your receipt, a little code, QR code, sorry.
Sorry, yeah, no, I guess, I'm thinking about the time and wondering if we have action items that have come out of this. Like there's been lots of really good ideas, but I guess I'm hoping that there are some actions, you know, Elfie referred to some editorials.
Right.
Now, quick clarification, were you thinking individually or as a group or
As
either?
a
Good question. I'm thinking as a group. Well, you mean, a person would write it representing the group. Is that what you mean?
Well, yeah, right, would it be Elfie Owens or would it be the Citizens Advisory Committee?
I don't know. What do you guys think?
What do you guys think, yeah?
I'm nervous about submitting like a, like kind of opinion in any way. Would it just not, like, what were you envisioning?
Well, firstly, if I were to write something, I would definitely pass it by everybody via email first.
But is it information?
I think it's information. I don't think it's
Informational,
opinion.
not. Yeah.
I think I'm writing a letter to the editor saying,
We're
Now, if you
different.
have
"Gee
to work,
whiz, what a great presentation it was on this date, but look. I mean, really, it would
Right.
just be like. And again, I don't wanna make it much work, so. Yeah, and take this link or this QR code or something to our website or to our newsletter, right to our newsletter. I would like it to go directly to the newsletter, actually. Just the most direct information they can get. But, so that's, yeah, that's the bare bones
but
idea.
maybe we could have like a little, you know, the committee update as a regular thing in the newsletter once in the, talk to them, hey, this is what happened this month, this is what's happening next month, you know, just in terms of, so a little bit more editorial than just the press release. But so people can know what's happening, what's on the docket of the committee and take them to the newsletter, but be it a regular column. Would that be a problem, Audra? I mean, we can ask. Do we have an issue doing this?
I mean. Yeah, I
That's
don't.
not- Are you talking about in the newspaper or did you say?
Newspaper, yeah.
Why
I
is
have
it
a
not?
wild idea.
Go for it.
What about a bookmark from the library that has our website and a QR code on it? And say, do you know what's going on? This is important to you.
So when you check out a book, you get a bookmark.
You get a bookmark every time
It's
I
great.
mean,
Yeah.
the library did it with, Battered Women, and they've done it
Yeah.
with.
Emerald ash borers.
Yeah, right. Whatever, but I mean, bookmarks with our logo on it and the QR code, and it just goes out there. It's like,
Can we get
It's
into
easy.
other bookstores around too?
well, yeah,
Coffee
maybe
shops
we
and-
do it, books, maybe the bookstores would be happy to do it,
Yeah.
maybe the
Yeah.
schools would be happy to do it, they have a book fair coming up.
I have a wild idea. How about a QR code on Zoom cups?
Hey, yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Maybe last time.
It's on the sidewalk.
On the
You could put
sidewalk.
one of those bookmarks in every
Sidewalk.
book that the library sells.
So library.
Well, that they sell, or that they, check out. Every time you check out, you get a bookmark in it, and this is important to our community.
Who makes those? Like how?
Well, we
do
would
we
have to make them, but,
Yeah.
and then give them
Buy
to the
the-
library, and they would put them
Yeah,
in
that would
all
be
their
hard to
bags.
put
Yeah,
together
it's-
a bookmark.
No, but at least that goes to everybody, and it's not
Everybody goes to the library.
everybody that goes to the library, but you could also do it, will the school libraries do it?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Stores, the
That's a
school
good idea.
libraries?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Let's keep moving.
Yeah.
But these are good ideas.
Yeah.
So we have, wait, so we have Facebook page, so Julia, it's in your hands, correct? Okay, then we have the bookmark, the bookmark, I love this idea. Then we have some form of content for Dan Dunkel. Then we have the insert in the paper at the occasion of an event. And then we had another one,
Did you say another postcard?
postcard, but kind of postcard given the response to
Maybe
the,
not.
maybe
Yeah.
not.
Maybe the bookmarks are
The
better
bookmarks are
use of printing money.
and the tax bill.
I don't know, I kind of feel like the mailing that we sent, it wasn't totally obvious that was about the survey. So it's hard to judge whether or not people actually saw it. I know in my family, we saw
Yeah.
it, but it wasn't obvious that it was for the survey, so. I think it's a good idea, I think the mailing is a good idea.
Is an old trick of printing things on fluorescent paper and sending them out.
It's blinking lights.
It works.
Yeah.
And at this
Yeah,
point,
I feel like we could do.
if people are starting to think about, I mean, if they've heard about us and they're wondering what we're doing, and if they're actually actively complaining about the fact that we're not communicating, then maybe they would look at this fluorescent postcard. I mean, I feel like we're now getting a little bit of an edge, maybe, if people are actually feeling like they're not hearing enough. If they get the postcard, maybe they will actually pay attention to it. Whereas before, we were sort of before that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So we have a few ideas, Julia, you capture them all, and you guys are gonna come back in January with like a plan and put that in there.
Yep.
Awesome. I think the bookmark is
Yeah, I love it.
super cool.
Right, and so.
Rick, you have a question?
Well, no, just the one other piece that
Yep.
I will put together a draft post for anyone who even just
Me,
has
I
a
would like that.
Facebook
Yep.
account.
Mhm.
I'll put together something that'll just basically be a paragraph, the bottom which is a link.
Mhm.
And then I think even if you just like throw $5 in from your own, it'll be boosted and.
About 40 or 50.
I'm saying as little, low price of. Anyway, but I'll certainly.
Great, all right.
Awesome, so these are all great ideas, excellent. Now we're moving to share ideas for activity,
No, yeah, Riverfest.
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 So I think so Bina met with Ray, Rick and Deb, and I think Deb had an idea, you called it a popcorn round.
Oh, where it's just no time to really think about it.
Yeah,
It's just, there's a Riverfest. Kids, adults, whatever are coming. What activities would be good?
Great.
So just name, go where it's it.
oh, parade.
Parade. Oh, parade. All right. The secret to this is there's no response, there's no criticism. There's nothing. It's just the first thing that comes up.
River bingo,
What?
river bingo.
Fishing.
What did you say, fish?
I said fishing.
Fishing?
Fishing.
Like
Fishing.
anything, go fishing.
I was thinking fish ink, like.
Oh, well, that too. I have got some
Tattoos,
myself.
maybe tattoos, right?
Yeah, I got some.
Fish ink and
Fish
fish
ink on
ink.
me.
We thinking mainly for kids?
Well, kids or adults. I mean, and it doesn't have to be just on your feet and moving around, because the other things we talked about, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rick and Ray, is how do we get information as part of this? And that could be having people go through things.
Maybe like a scavenger hunt.
Or what about like the corn maze, where you go through where the river would go through, and here's where this dam is, here's where that dam is.
Well, and there was a walkthrough, there's a section, where there could be a walkthrough. So it's stuff like that. It's just, but it was just four of us trying to come up with ideas, and we thought you all are very creative.
Could do a race and call it a river run. Yeah, they're trying to go up to the river, it's
Right,
like
yeah.
obstacles, so
There you
they
go.
have to go around things and,
Build a series of dams. Yeah, I mean, you could do it very, no.
Yeah.
Well, some of the concrete we saw, just those concrete.
Right, yeah, just send them right.
Like a water table, I mean,
You
those
could
are
do
pretty
them.
simple to make, where you have manipulative dams and and sand in it, so that people can just see how much impact dams have.
Well, and I would hope, I'm looking at you, Courtney, that the model
yeah, it
would be
will,
there.
Right.
yeah, that's the goal.
And then it's a model that you can you can put rain on
Right.
to see what happens. Yeah.
That's the goal.
Scavenger.
And maybe we can use some of their exhibit paraphernalia as well.
But I mean, places that you all have gone, some festivals, what were the things that?
Music.
Yeah, we
Draw
certainly
people in
talked
that
about
might
music.
not be into it.
Cool bands.
There you go.
Actually, we thought about beaching.
Yeah, polar plunge.
Polar plunge. We should get the fish band, like a band that does fish music.
How about?
Right up in Lincoln.
But not-
Hippie car.
But I don't, yeah, fish tribute band.
If we had fish, people would come.
Maybe Rick wouldn't, but everybody.
Is my, anti-fish free, yeah. I don't know.
Ben and Jerry's fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Fish food ice
Food
cream.
that's-
is super-
One thing I'd like to bring up, because it was part of our discussion and everything, is location for this, and I think Bina and who was the other person from?
Maggie?
Maggie, I'm sorry, Maggie. We're thinking about, or proposed to do it at, Shirt Tail. And I personally don't think there's enough room at Shirt Tail to accommodate what we would hope would be a turnout. And secondly, there's no parking there. There's a little bit of parking, but that takes up half the space.
Right.
So everybody, including all of us, would have to be on a shuttle to get up there. And I don't know,
Yeah,
Audrey
that would be
can,
very-
Audrey can enlighten us, but I really still think the tannery is the most logical
Yeah,
place.
it
It's
is.
by the river. People can park, they can walk there from, a lot of people in the neighborhood can walk there. I think the tannery is just a better place to do it.
Can you play and walk and set stuff up on the grass at this point? Audrey, you can't.
There's a
So we
dirt
could
pile
use
to
that.
play on.
Yeah, that restriction was last
Okay,
year.
you can play on it again.
Right, and we're talking about a Sunday, so there's no,
Farmers.
farmer's market to work around. In fact, yeah, and, if we're talking about a couple of, food trucks or whatever they have there.
Fish tacos.
Fish tacos.
Well,
And
Right,
a
yeah.
dog, a fish costume dog parade.
In fact, I'm in charge
There you
of
go.
collecting names of ones, so if you have certain ones, let me know after this meeting, okay? Because I got a list of about 5 or 6 so far.
Food trucks?
Food trucks?
Food trucks?
Yeah.
Oh, food trucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the ones we mentioned, and I think it was you, Rich, was, the brick oven. Brick oven?
Yeah, upper.
Upper pie, just
Pie, yeah.
because everybody loves
Right,
that
and
food.
they're there on Saturdays anyways.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, and oyster shuckers. and
Yeah, I would nail her down sooner than later.
Yeah, I would say we
Yes,
need to
that's
get
right.
in
So
touch.
she may
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
She
Right.
books out. We could also talk to Molly and see if some of the providers from the people, the vendors at the farmer's market would do something for the river festival, like fish cookies or something like that, just to have a little market there too. Yeah, we could have swag You know, we can have T-shirts for the
There you go.
Right.
micro-invertebrate costumes
Yeah.
for kids of all age, including
Right.
middle-aged women.
Always.
Plenty room there, set up some kind of a game area or an activity area for kids, for
Yeah.
music, for food vendors, and for whatever information that we want to set up
Yeah.
there. So I mean,
Well,
QR
if-
codes.
If the group agrees that that's the right place to be thinking about, it probably makes sense for the event committee. And I'm hoping, you know, Bina or maybe one of your other representatives could go and just try to map out how much stuff could go there, how many food trucks, how much music.
right,
Jeremy knows.
Because my perspective on that site is farmer's market. I don't look this way or that way.
Right,
Um,
like you don't look at the river.
No, every once in a while I do, but I don't look at the river.
Right.
right.
You know, what would be amazing to do with the Riverfest is, okay, sort of a Tom Sawyer type setup. Like, offer people to dig up invasive plants. Because the riverside right there is absolutely chock full of invasive plants. I wouldn't pick up the riverbank around there.
No.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
It's really tough to eradicate invasive plants,
No,
having
it's a great idea.
for a couple decades.
Yeah.
Because it's hard.
Yeah.
They come back, we burn them, we've done everything.
Yes.
That's what they're digging
No,
up.
but if we could have
Hides, it's all there sticking out.
Yeah, so.
Go ahead.
Excuse me, we reserve that date now for,
Yeah, sure.
okay?
Is it done? Is it done? Reserved?
Reserve.
Wait, what is it?
That's what I'm trying to remember.
Oh,
I think it was
Sunday, April.
No,
No,
it's something.
early June.
Oh, June.
So just a devil's advocate type of, just throwing this out there. Really, the only downside that I saw of exclusively using the tannery site. Is it, you know, back to the point, there's not really any river interaction there unless, I mean, unless, other than like the way Seth creatively.
I don't.
It is.
Susan, wait. I thought,
We're trying to figure out
Yeah,
when
but-
graduation takes place.
okay,
No, it's not on Sunday, right?
It's on the CSD board,
It's gonna be later than.
it's on.
Well, this, all of a sudden it dawned on me.
all right, but let's make a
So-
note that we need to check graduation days.
So just, I mean, if you want activities that involve interaction with the river, that's not a good site for it, at least if that's the only site you're using. I mean, one thing to consider is a possibility of breaking up the Riverfest over multiple sites. So if you have all your food trucks and that kind of stuff at the tannery site, maybe there's some sort of shuttling over to either the Seabright location or Shirt Tail. Maybe one of the things I was envisioning was like a kayak, not rented, but like basically sign a waiver and maybe guided tours in kayaks around there. Especially, you know, considering what we did today and like getting up into that area and looking just to see what the thing looks like. And I don't think many Camden residents are that familiar with what
Yeah.
the river looks like. So I definitely think that the tannery is a bigger site and better to have tables and stuff like that, food trucks, but I don't want to 100% walk away from involving some sort of interactive
Yeah.
river activity.
Cool.
Fly casting maybe,
Yeah.
this, you know, from where the Coastal Mountain Land Trust's parking lot is, or.
And maybe we can work also with Coastal Mountain Land Trust or other organizations, and so at different sites, we
Right.
have volunteers to their group that can help, you know, and it would be like for 3 or 4 hours, we cannot have the whole day, it's, you know, let's see what's possible.
Right.
In terms of location, volunteers that can help, you know, manage all those different sites, during that day, but
So far, the tannery, Coastal
Tannery,
Mountain site and.
right,
It's Shirt Tail.
Seabright, Seabright and Shirt Tail.
Right.
so 3 locations.
Graduation is
Before.
Friday, June 7th.
Shepherd story.
Oh, it is?
Friday, June 7th.
Yeah, it's usually,
Based on
it's a
the
week.
schedule that I'm
Okay.
looking at, which I Hell's Regional High School.
God, that's so early.
That's us.
Okay. All right, we need to move on. Any more popcorn ideas for the Riverfest? If you do, just send them over to Julia and the whole list so that, and then we'll, we're gonna need to start planning at the beginning of the year. What would be the library is not, the library. We do something for kids with AB maybe or something like that, possibly.
Well, the other thing I need to mention is that Stewardship Education Alliance is having the Sea Fair.
Right.
I thought it was on the
I was
3rd of
just trying to
June. I
figure it out
clearly got
too.
the wrong thing.
When is it?
Oh, wait, maybe I'm on the wrong month. Where am I? I think it's on,
newsletter.
I think it's on the 7th. I think it's
Yeah,
on the
we told her to
7th
connect with that.
at the middle school during the day.
Yeah, Friday, that sounds right.
Okay,
But that's the day of graduation.
yeah, but that's
That's
at the high
the
school
following week.
and
Isn't that the following week? Okay.
No, it's the 7th.
I might have it wrong. Maybe it's the 1st of June that, I don't know.
No, I think because they said how it's early,
Alright, we-
7th.
Okay, I'll
Okay.
find out what Sea Fair is.
Okay. All right, so any more popcorn ideas, just keep throwing them. Turn them into spaghetti and let's see what sticks. We're a roundtable, you wanna tackle that?
Yeah, then I guess we have 9 minutes before we pause to
To see if
talk to
we're.
the public, listen to the public. So Bina wrote a note, to me, just a question to ask the committee about the roundtable, which we had scheduled tentatively scheduled at the middle school, or I guess we have scheduled on February 7th. She said, Restore Mrcac has a roundtable of fish experts speaking at the middle school on February 1st. We are scheduled to have a roundtable of towns who have done similar projects at the middle school February 7th. Is this confusing? Is it too much? Should we move our roundtable to just at one of our meetings? So that's a question that she asked me today to share.
What do you guys think?
What day of the week is the first?
I think it's a Thursday, the week before. It'd be like exactly a week before. So.
So they're doing a
February
roundtable of
1st,
what
their
exactly,
event,
fish experts?
February 8th.
Okay.
It's mainly talking about how introducing sea-run fish can help the greater economy. By talking, like, we're gonna have someone from like the fishing industry come and talk about how important alewives are. Gotcha. Like stuff like that.
Is it
And this
also
is for middle
towns
school?
or?
No, it's
At
not the
the
middle
middle
school,
school.
the middle
It's
school
for us.
auditorium,
Yeah.
but it's not for the middle school.
But it was for us and the public?
It's for everyone, it has
Yeah.
nothing to do with us.
Yeah, it's outside of us.
It's Restore Mrcac River is organizing their own event to talk about fish
Got it.
on February 1st. We're thinking of having our own roundtable on February 7th.
Which is about projects that might help us
Right.
answer some questions about ours.
Right, and so the question is, having those two events back to back, is it confusing? Should we consider moving ours to a later date so that people are not confused?
And they're both
I would say,
named a roundtable.
Seth, what did you say?
Sorry.
I think we could easily change names, to make it less confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they both, one's a panel, the other's a round table.
Right.
But I think that, if the Restore Mrcac panel, which I will be a panelist on, is wildly popular, maybe more people will show up to our roundtable next week.
Only if
Maybe nobody will come.
Yeah.
I mean, we're trying to, create excitement about fish.
So you think
which
it's okay
I've
to have
dedicated a career to.
Back to back.
Well, it could help, like,
If we want.
I think it's okay to
if
have
we
them
want-
back to back. I think as long as they're not roundtable, if they don't have such similar names.
Yeah, we gotta
that
have
would be
policy
tricky, but-
different.
Yeah.
I think confusing making possibly, but more bodies bring on confusion.
On the other hand, it's easy to switch up also to another month, so. Okay,
Yeah, the only thing with the roundtable is
Yeah.
that we've
We've already
locked
locked
it in
in that
with the
video.
4 communities.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
what my,
so-
yeah, like,
Yeah.
it'd be hard to
so,
connect all those.
so we're
Yeah.
okay.
I think both are pretty locked in.
Sounds like everyone says keep going.
I'd say keep going, yeah.
Be cautious with the naming.
do we know who's at the round table?
Oh, I was afraid you were gonna ask me. It was,
The round table comprises which groups?
it was Farmington, Exeter, New Hampshire,
Bristol.
Bristol, Bristol,
Or Bagadoos,
yeah, Bagadoos.
definitely Bagadoos.
Bagadoos, and I forget the fourth one.
Okay.
Jim's got,
Not Somersville,
was it Bristol Mills?
not Somersville,
I think it was both, maybe Bristol Mills and Bagadoos. Does that sound right?
That's what I remember.
but not Somersville.
Sorry, Bina, can you just?
Maybe it was.
Oh,
some-
Stones, right, right.
Stonesville.
Maybe it's, yeah, I think it's Stonesville, Bagadoos, Farmington, and
Exeter.
Exeter.
Okay.
So we will double check.
Yes,
and
we will.
Let you know.
It's probably in the minutes.
Cool. All right, we have 4 minutes. Yes, go for
This is
Yeah.
topic, and then I apologize, this isn't on the agenda, but, a long time ago, there was a discussion about having an occasional briefing from a non-select board member of our committee going to basically be available to the select board. I think the timing of it was terrible. There were like,
Yeah.
there were a lot of
Yeah.
spirited conversations at that time for the select board, but, is there some value in, do you think that they want that? And the people of Camden want that? Maybe we should
And so
revisit
do you
that.
do updates?
I do.
We do, but I think our updates, there's opportunity to make our updates better. I know I can do a better job with my update time that I have.
Okay.
And I intend to speak about the items that are being discussed here. Yeah, not that there's resolution, not that I don't want to make it seem like there is a recommendation yet. But I think it's important, as you said earlier, people need to know what's going on with it, with the group. And, that it doesn't look too assumptive, that people are talking and questioning, and that's a good thing. And the more people know, I think, that people are talking and questioning, it makes them open to talk about that. So I know I can do a better job.
But would it add some
I think it
interest to
would.
have?
It's
a member?
like it was,
Pathways
someone,
Committee, they're gonna come and do an update to the select
Yep.
board that's sort of scheduled pretty soon. And I think that the desire is to get more of the committee sort of coming regularly and talking about what they're doing, like the planning board came
The
and did
planning
one
board, yeah.
pretty recently. So, yeah, it's something that they're trying to add,
Yeah.
I think, into the rotation of their agendas.
So
Rick,
is
you're
this,
still up for it?
And I'd be happy to do it and be accompanied by another non-select board committee member, because I think
That
it's
would be
tag
good.
team. You know,
Yeah.
all right.
Interesting. Excellent.
It might help our profile.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I was
I
thinking,
agree.
yeah.
we're not monsters.
I was thinking about that when I was driving
Not
in,
today,
like, looking at the survey results. Of how many folks were contributing in the surveys and the percentages and whatnot, and it's people that the group normally has as friends and updates, and so maybe that's is appearing too one-sided, but there's more out there through the different venues like you guys talk about. I think that's important to reach that other percentage that is curious or is concerned or doesn't know. And the more that's out there that shows the openness in the discussion, I think that everyone benefits from that.
All right, excellent. We need,
Quick question.
no.
it's only 5:44.
Well, okay, so one.
What I was gonna say to the two members of the select board, I think it'd be very helpful if you have that kind of an update from this committee, that you also allow for people in the audience to ask questions or make a comment afterwards too.
Well, that's select board. That's up to them.
It's up to the
Yeah,
select, it's up to the select board to do that, that's all.
So in that line, you wonder whether people like Rotary would enjoy having us come and do an update.
Reached out to-
And I give an update to the library trustees.
You do?
Yes.
So it's a good idea.
All right, it's 5:45. So do we have anyone from the public?
Not that I've seen. That would like to speak.
Wait, just, let's check.
Well, we're engaging, Forrest, do you have a?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
When and how much time would Rick and Ellen have? When
As
would you,
much as
might as
you
well,
want.
might as
I
well, you
mean-
can- January?
January, February, January?
I'd recommend February, because January is already pretty packed out, because the second December meeting was canceled.
Yeah,
So how much time would they have in the meeting?
so we,
I mean, the select board did have a policy, only 15 minutes for presentations, so 15 minutes.
It's a long.
It's a long.
That's the longest presentation, yeah.
Does that include Q and A?
no,
Just the
no.
presentation.
But-
And then the select board would ask presumably Rick and Ellen questions.
Exactly,
And you guys meet weekly, right?
every other week.
Every other week? Okay.
So, but also remember that it's also an occasion to show the website, to show the maps, because we have video, we have Zoom, we have all that capacity. So if you want to give a short presentation with all the assets that the committee has developed, that would be, good. Also because people do go back to presentations that are given, they click on the link, they do, watch them at their leisure. So 5 slides if you want something.
And maybe just respectfully ask for some support from our.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no,
Yeah.
Graphical
for
support.
sure.
Yeah, the last time I put together a PowerPoint wasn't good.
Maybe someone else could do
I can read it, putting it together.
Yeah.
I can put together a evening slide.
I think we have some, a system involved, and thank you.
So while we're on this, so because this is recorded, so from now on, the public is invited to give us some questions and comments in the last 15 minutes of the Megunticook River Citizens Advisory Committee. We do ask that the public who wants to come and make comments attend the whole meeting, because they can rebound on some things that were said or questions that they have on the topics that were addressed at the meeting. We're suggesting that the comments are 2 minutes long, not more than that, so that we can either can respond or address those comments and questions. So we're hoping that in the new year, we'll have the public come and share with us their questions, comments, resources, ideas. All right, given that we have no one from the public.
I have one
Yeah,
last
please,
thing
go
that I
ahead.
would like to add.
Yes,
On the fact sheet that was sent out to us, that Bina sent out,
yeah,
that showed the dams and on the first page,
yeah,
there are 2 pages to it. On the first page, I would like the top of that first page to say that it's condensed interfluve fact sheet, and that it's not from us.
Yeah.
That we are recommending that certain actions be taken on the dams, which is the second page.
Doesn't it, well, it says both feasibility reports were written by Interfluve and paid for through the.
I know, but I think right straight up front, it ought to show that that MRCAC is not recommending, we are not making the recommendations on the second page, but this is from Interfluve.
Oh, gotcha, so it's the second page.
That's right, I'm very concerned that people are gonna look at it and say, oh my God, they've decided that this is what's gonna happen. And
That's a really good point.
yes,
Got
I really think it needs to say this is.
So just say, like, can we just say in that little heading, these are, just make it more clear that this is, summary of the feasibility report, not. the Mrcac
My thought was just,
Right.
the first line should say condensed interfluve fact sheet.
Well, we should put something
On the
on this
second
page.
And on the second
Well,
page as well.
Yeah, you're right.
Because I
Yeah, you're right.
don't want
Standalone page.
people to think
Right.
that this is what we're recommending, because it's Interfluve's report, it's not ours.
Right. Terrific.
I really think it's important.
yeah, excellent point. Bye, Beth.
I'm sorry.
I know you have a party.
I have a psychotic cat at home.
Oh.
And I just got a message.
Okay.
Good luck.
Oh, dear.
Bye.
Thoughts and
See you.
letters.
All right,
Hey, Merry Christmas, Deb.
Mary, yeah,
To everybody.
all right. Is there anything else, Ray?
Just
has
one
something to
quick thing,
say.
okay, and I don't know if Bina and Maggie sent out notes from our events committee and everything, okay? But the committee of the three of us voted to not have movie night, period.
Oh, no movie night.
No movie night, yeah. So.
What was the reasoning for that? Do you remember?
None of the three of us were excited about it at all doing it, period, okay? All right, and just,
No,
it just was
but
gonna become too much of a propaganda piece that we felt, so. If so you correct me if I'm.
That was definitely expressed. I
Yeah.
was sort of tepidly interested in all of it, but, kind of getting along. I mean, I think one of the things that was expressed was, yeah, that nobody, didn't seem like there were any folks making short films about projects like this who, how do I say this gently? They all seem to be aligned in a certain direction. And folks in our community that maybe want to go in a different direction, nobody's making movies that look like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Thank you. Yeah, right.
When I said propaganda, I think that's the right way, it's sort of like one-sided.
You have to be
two-sided.
with that.
Yes, I agree.
It's,
So,
I can find a way and.
This is just a news item, which is that if anybody, has the time to listen to the recording, I think it's probably on the library site of the Camden Can.
yes.
Yes.
Did y'all see it? It was so good.
It's so good.
Yeah. So anyway, if you didn't see it, what was the title of it?
It
The
was-
Camden Can,
Climate change.
It was something about like, what is Camden doing on?
yeah,
the
and it was
question.
on December, last Thursday, was it?
right,
Yeah.
yep.
Let's
So,
put the link in.
I have something to piggyback on that. If nobody else has.
Go for it.
So. Yes, so I attended that and I thought it was really great, super inspirational. And Dave St. Laurent and our Camden town planner, Jeremy Martin, also gave great presentations. They emphasized quite a bit the issue of flooding. Both of them. And they said, this is a massive issue that we're dealing with constantly now. And I just felt like their voices were really important. Because they're getting phone calls, like Dave said, on a daily basis, he gets phone calls about flooding in somebody's yard or, and I don't know, I think it'd be very valuable to have them either come talk to the committee or give some kind of presentation, something. And I know that Dave already spoke to us regarding the dam specifically, but he has a much broader perspective on the watershed and all the issues that come along with flooding. So that's a suggestion that I wanted to put out there.
Featured in Mrcac somewhere?
No.
I just feel like they need to come talk to our committee, like, kind of, I was thinking more along the lines of what Storm We're Gonna Cook and Save the Dam Falls did, so they had like 20 minutes, just come talk with us, and then we can interact and ask questions. I just think it's so important that our committee is involved with that, and not all committee members always go to the presentations, right? So, there's one idea. And I know at some point we talked about having, Dave come in and talk about dam maintenance as well, so we can consider that as well in that conversation.
he did give us a damn tour, do we feel like that didn't cover?
Well, the problem with that was that it wasn't recorded, so that people, I didn't go, unfortunately, I was somewhere. And yeah, I think it was also not as easy to hear everything for
Wow.
everybody.
That was not.
So I think we do need to have a reiteration of that discussion and like, more specific maintenance questions.
Cool. Excellent idea, when you can.
Fit it in somewhere.
When's our last meet, our next meeting is January?
January 9th, I believe. And Ellen, January 9th, and Ellen is the next vice chair.
All right. Awesome.
Great.
Awesome.
Good team.
All right, good team, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded?
Second.